Good morning, everyone. Are you guys ready for another art lesson? Okay, well, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to be talking about color. And in particular, we're going to be talking about the color wheel, which is how the colors are assorted, right? So this is a color wheel. And you guys have probably seen this in my room or somewhere in your classrooms or maybe at an art store. So the color wheels are really important because they tell us how they're related to each other. So there's only 3 primary colors. 1, 2, 3. Can you guys guess what they are? So our primary colors are yellow, red, and blue. And I have those right here, red, yellow, and blue. These are the most important colors in the entire color wheel because we use these colors to make all of the other colors that you can see with your eye, right? So the only colors that they can't make are black and white, but you can make brown with these, you can make lime green with these, you can make magenta with these. So these are some really fun colors. So when you add these 3 colors plus black and white, your colors are endless. You can have as many different kinds of colors as your brain can think up, which is really fun. I should have you guys do a color challenge one of these days where you have to make 100 different colors with the primary colors in black and white. It's a lot of work though, so we'll leave that for another day. We're going to actually be making a color wheel, not with paint, like these paintbrushes, but with markers. And it's a really fun technique using watercolor paper and just your regular washable Crayola markers. So the 3 primary colors are the red, yellow, and blue. So those are the only color markers you're going to need for this whole thing. But you'll also need a Sharpie and you'll need a pencil along with your markers. And what we're going to do is make these cool color wheel lions. And we're going to be talking about the color wheel, which is his mane, right? Or her, well, no, lions with manes are all boys, aren't they? Ah, man. So I'm sorry, they all have to be boy lions today. But what we're going to do is we're also going to be talking about texture. Texture is the way that something feels. So if you felt your hair, it would feel different than if you took a picture of your hair and felt that picture. That would be what we call implied texture. This is actual tactile texture, something you can actually feel, or your sweater, tactile. If you can see the bumps on my sweater, they are actually bumpy in real life, but if you felt your TV monitor right now, guess what? That's implied texture, because it would just be like the screen, wouldn't it? So we're going to draw some implied texture on our lion with these short little lines to make him look fuzzy. I'm excited. Are you guys ready? Okay, so get your markers. I'm providing you with the watercolor paper. You guys, I want you to feel that watercolor paper, feel the tactile texture, because it does have something called tooth, which means little bumps on the surface, which helps hold water. That's why we're not going to be using our sketchbook again today, because the sulfite construction paper, it absorbs water too quickly, and so it doesn't move around as much. So we need these colors to move around to blend to make our secondary colors. Our secondary colors are purple, green, and orange. And we're going to make all of these today with just 3 colors. I'm excited. Let's get going. All right, guys, we are ready to start our art project on our color wheel lion. The first thing I want you to do is, since this is an extra piece of paper outside of your sketchbook, let's go ahead and put our name on the back so we know who it belongs to. So Mrs.Marple. Now your name is not Mrs. Marple, so please don't write that on your paper. Then flip it over. And I hope you guys got a chance to feel the tooth of the watercolor paper. This is the texture on the surface, and it's called a tactile texture because it's a texture you can actually feel, versus an implied texture, which is the drawing of texture. And we'll be doing some implied texture on our lion today. You're going to be getting some tracers today, just to make things just a little bit easier. If you don't feel like you need the tracers, you don't have to use them. You can make a more realistic looking lion, especially for my 4th and 5th graders. You don't necessarily need to use these, but I'm going to provide them so you can use them if you want to. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do our mane. This is the largest part of our picture that we're going to be tracing, and it's also the most important part. So we call that the focal point. That's the most important part of your picture, and we want that to be right in the middle towards the top. We want to have some room for our lion's body at the bottom. So right about there, I'm going to use my pencil and I'm going to trace around it. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Sharpie just so you guys can see it better on your screen. You guys need to keep using that pencil. And if you want to make this lion mane have extra texture, you can put some ziggy-zaggy lines on the end of the circle, and I'll show you my example at the end again so you can see. This is the simplified version. This is the easiest to color in, so we're just going to do basic circles. You're going to put the smaller circle tracer on the inside. That is called concentric. So we're making concentric circles, meaning a shape within another shape. Hold it down to where it's centered. You want to make sure there's about the same amount of mane from the top and the bottom, side to side. You wouldn't want it over here. You wouldn't want it up here or down here. Right in the belly button, as I say, right in the middle. Trace your circle. You might have an adult help you if you need that extra help. Okay, so now we have our mane, which is our largest circle, and we have our head on the inside. Now, if you look at a picture of a lion, and I'll try to include that in your packet here, we're also going to be using a lot of shapes in this lesson, kind of like our Mary Blair, how we talked about geometric shapes. Most of the shapes we're going to use for this are geometric. However, a lion in real life would be more of an organic shape because nothing is a perfect circle on a lion or a perfect triangle or a perfect oval. So a lion in real life is an organic form or shape, and the lion we're making today is more of a geometric. So that's why we're using those tracers. I'm going to use some half circles or semicircles for ears. I'm going to do another one on the inside. We're going to do a cute little nose triangle in the middle of your circle. And then we're going to draw the bridge of the nose, which is another geometric shape here. 2 straight lines topped with another line. Then we're going to put an oval underneath. So watch what I do before you start drawing. And then you can put your little lion mouth underneath. Meow. Okay, so after you finish your little face here, oh, we forgot a few things. Let's do some little whisker marks. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then come up and put some eyes. You can have a sleepy lion or you can have an awake lion. The one I have an example of already is a sleepy lion, so I think I'm going to do an awake lion. So I'm going to do some big open eyes for my lion. Cute. Okay, at this point, we're going to move on to the body. So the body down here is, oh, you know what? Never mind. Never mind. The first thing we're going to do is divide our color wheel mane. The first thing I want you to do is pretend that you're cutting a pizza. So we're going to go straight down without drawing through our cute face. Okay, so pretend that little face isn't there. You got your little tracer here. You draw up. Pretend you're drawing an invisible line. Down. And then we're going to go across in each direction like an X. Because we need to make sure that we have the right amount of pieces. We need 6 pieces. And this doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want to draw through any part of your pretty little lion face. So pretend it's an X. Coming across. And then count your pieces to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, if they're not exactly the same size, that's perfectly fine. We need 6 pieces, though. All right, moving on to the body. I'm going to come down here at the bottom, close to this line here, and I'm going to draw down for his back, and then I'm going to draw him a tail. And they've got little bushy tails, so you can put some zigzags on that. We're going to come down from the bottom of the tail, and feel free to pause this if you need to. I'm going to go straight, almost halfway across the body here, up for the foot, and up again for the leg. And now we're going to leave that there, and we're going to come over here to this other side. We're going to do the front paw. So we got our little lion body. Now at this point, you can use a thin Sharpie if you want, or you can use the same Sharpie you have, and we're gonna put some implied texture on our lion. So short, little, fuzzy lines to make him look like he's hairy. This is called implied texture. Or visual texture, the kind that you can see but not feel. So I'm going to go through and put some extra texture on my lion. I can also put some little toes on him if I want to, and make any erase anything that I don't want on here before we start to work with markers. I'll see you in just a minute. I have finished my implied texture, and we are ready to start coloring. Now, if you remember, we are only going to be using 3 markers today. So in your bag, you should have a set of markers. You need red, yellow, and blue. These are the only ones you're going to need for right now, okay? The first thing I want you to do is pick one color. Let's start with yellow. And what we're going to do is we are going to pick a piece to color. And if you will follow along with me, it'll be a little bit easier. So go ahead and try to use the same color that I'm using. I'm going to color one section yellow. And if you use the side of your marker, it goes a lot faster. And Mrs. Marple's going a little fast, but I want you guys to slow down so your teacher can pause between each color. Yellow. And now I'm going to skip a piece. So this one needs to stay white right now. I'm going to move on to red. They should not be touching each other. There should be a space between. Try to stay inside the lines as best you can. Okay. Snap your cap. What color are we missing? Blue. Skip a piece. Blue. There should be one white piece between each of my primary colors. I'll also include a link to a song about primary colors. Now, my bigger kids, I'm sure you've seen it before, so you could pretend you're too cool for it, or you can enjoy it. It's by a band called OK Go on Sesame Street, and they sing about the primary colors. It's really fun because they like jump up and down and the colors kind of come out of their feet. It's neat. Okay, so we have our 3 primary colors, and they're each separated by one white square. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start putting in our secondary colors, but we're not going to be reaching for these secondary color markers. We're going to make our own secondary colors by using just these same primary colors. But we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to be overlapping our colors. So what I want you to do is do one at a time. It'll make it go a lot easier. You use the light color first. So I know I'm going to need to put a yellow here because yellow and red equal orange. So I'll need to put a yellow layer here, and I'll also need to put a yellow layer here because the colors that are next to each other, what do they mix together to make? So blue and yellow make green. So I'll need both of these to be yellow eventually, but I'm going to start one at a time so I don't get all mixed up. So right here, I'm going to start coloring in with my light color first. And I don't have to worry about being quite as in the lines right here because, whoops, I can go color over there and it's no big deal. I need to be more careful closer to the red, of course. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to color on top with the red. Now it may not look like orange yet, but don't worry about that, we're going to fix it. Got something under my placemat. Okay. So this will turn into orange a little bit later. It may look slightly orange right now, but I'm gonna worry about that a little later. We're gonna do another yellow piece here. Remember to pause so that you can take a little bit more time to fill this in. Okay. And now we're going to use blue. It's almost like color math. Yellow plus blue equals green. So we put them together. Light color first. I wouldn't want to start with blue, because if I colored over blue with my yellow marker, it would make a big mess of my yellow marker, and then it wouldn't work very well if I needed to go back and make orange or something like that. So use the light color first. The blue can handle it. Same thing with the red. Okay. Now we're going to go down to the bottom piece. Blue plus red equals purple. Now, you want to use the lightest color first, so you would have to use your judgment. I think that red is a lighter color, so I'm going to use red first and draw on top with the blue. And then on top with the blue. These markers are actually working pretty well to actually look like the secondary color without the last step. But we're still going to do the last step, which is adding water. We are using watercolor paper so that we can have the water and markers blend together a little bit easier than if they were on the construction paper. So you're going to grab a brush and some water, and then we're going to start painting our secondary colors first. So those are the colors we had to mix. And what you're going to find is that the colors will blend together really nicely and almost look like paint. So even if you're at home and you do not have paint, you can use your markers and either paint on top of them once they're dry, or sometimes you can even use the markers that are tired and running out of ink, and you can soak them in water and you can make your own paint that way. You need to ask permission though first. Okay, so I have an orange color because I had my yellow and my red mixed together here. I'm going to clean out my brush, and I'm not going to paint the yellow or the red yet because my paper edges right there are still wet, and so if I painted this yellow, the orange would bleed over the side because that's what watercolors like to do. So I'm going to come over here to my green secondary. I use that yellow and blue together. So I'm going to wet that whole space. And it makes a pretty green. Now if I had filled this in a little bit better, maybe not so scribbly scrabbly, that would be a more solid green color. But I think we can all definitely say that that's a green. Clean my brush again. You wouldn't want to mix green with purple down here because it would make brown. And our very last color, which is also our darkest color. Violet or purple. Cute. All right, so once these colors dry, your secondary colors, I do want you to go back and paint over your regular markers that are not the secondary colors, the ones that you didn't have to mix, just so it all looks like it's been painted. I'm going to go over mine just really quick so you guys can see, but I'm going to be really careful. I'm not going to go close to those edges where I just painted, because like I said, the colors will run over, and you don't want that to happen. Cleaning your brush between because that little bit of water on there will make a difference, a little bit of yucky water on your brush. So since these are wet, you'll want to go ahead and put these on the drying rack if you have one, or you can lay them on the floor in a space out of the way until they're dry. Because our color wheel is the most important part of this picture, the focal point if you remember, we're not going to worry about coloring the lion. If you wanted to, you could paint the background, or you could do different kinds of lines and shapes with the markers. That would be fine. But we want almost all of the attention, the emphasis on the color wheel main. I hope you guys enjoyed doing something just a little bit different with markers today. Make sure that you snap all the caps back on your markers really well before putting them back in your box. Remembering that we're focusing on primary colors today, red, yellow, and blue, and also texture. So implied texture is the kind of texture we drew today, where it's just visual, it doesn't really feel like a fuzzy lion. And then actual texture is like my sweater that I can feel with my fingers, and it feels exactly the way it looks. All right, guys, we will see you guys next week.